Welcome to Now That's It, Stories of MSP Success, where we dive into the journeys of some of the trailblazers in our industry to find out how they used their passion for technology to help turn managed services into the thriving sector it is today.
Tim Clarkson, welcome to the Now That's It podcast. I've really enjoyed speaking to several Australians on the pod, but you're my first Kiwi, so welcome.
Yep.
Awesome.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, you and I got to spend some time together in the Blue Mountains outside of Sydney several months ago. It was summertime then, probably getting a little bit colder now. I think you just said it was 0 overnight. That's brisk, Tim.
Yeah, it's getting there. It's moving towards winter. We've got some cold fronts coming through.
Yeah, crazy. So you're the founder and managing director at OxygenIT, a service provider delivering enterprise-level IT services to small and mid-sized businesses in New Zealand. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciated getting to know you over the last year. I think most people that know you would say that you enjoy talking about your entrepreneurial journey. That's the one thing I really like about you is you've always shared, if my story helps somebody else, then that's great. Then that's why you tell it. So thanks for telling us the story today, and we'll get right into it. So as a young lad, and very similar to many young individuals, you finish university and you enter the workforce. But did I read this right? You were going to school for accounting and finance, but then you started working with computers?
Yeah, I came out in an accounting degree in 91, 92, and it was a recession. So I had a half-time job doing accounting and got a 20-hour-a-week job doing IT. And within about 2 months, realised I was not going to be an accountant. Well, maybe I would be, but I wouldn't be successful. I'd be in jail. You know, there's just no attention to detail, and my mind was around computers, and I loved that, and that's where it started.
That's great. What did those early jobs in the IT business, in the IT space, what did they do to help set yourself up for a career leading a business?
Well, one of my early ones is I very quickly progressed from an engineer to an IT manager at a young age. And one thing I found there was I had a boss who was not a good boss. Yeah. And having a boss like that at a very early age can be quite detrimental. And I realized it's like his management style was not a style I wanted to emulate anywhere part of my business, with coming to banging hands on desks and shouting and yelling. And I'm like, that's not getting the best out of your people. So I went through that, then went and worked for a multinational company, then moved back to Christchurch and worked for a friend's business. And from there, I realised, at the age of 27, it's in New Zealand, we have a thing called an OE. And so we went and did our overseas experience. It's supposed to be 2 years, 8 years later, after working at Royal Bank of Scotland and Shell, I came back to New Zealand to start my own business.
Awesome. So you did some consulting early on, I saw from your resume. And is that, first of all, consulting is its own bag of risks and everything, but was that your first real exposure to what it might be like to run a business someday?
Yeah, well, I organised that consulting before I left the UK. So I found a couple of larger firms who didn't have representation in Asia Pacific, said, hey, do you want somebody to do this work for you? And they jumped on it. And I had one small child at that time and the second one on the way. Came back and started consulting, and it was a grind. It was every second week I was away overseas to Bangkok, Sydney, installing systems, configuring systems, to the point where I was doing that. 2005, 2008, the GFC hit, and I'm sitting there going to my wife, if I don't have some work by Friday, I've got to go get a job. And then 2 days later, we had 6 months worth of work. It's like, wow. And I just, at that point, I just said, well, I can't carry on doing this. It's like a break fix IT firm with roller coasters. We have a really good month, and then you have a really bad month. In the bad month, you don't do anything. You can't spend the money because you don't know when the next money's coming in. So you can't prepare yourself for the next good month. So you're stuck in the cycle of highs and lows. That is what we call IT.
Yeah, it sure is. I've heard so many tell the stories about those days in consulting where you have a really good month and then you might not have any income coming for a couple of months. And so more power to you. Congrats. That is not my style and wasn't for me. So tell me about OxygenIT. Why did you decide to start OxygenIT, say 19 years ago, I think it was. And then what were some of those early days like, Tim?
Well, I didn't start OxygenIT. I actually started a small business called System Management Consulting.
Okay.
Yep, and there's myself, and it was the consulting part, and then I brought on an employee, and then I went and brought another one-man band business, and that was really scary. It put $100,000 on the table and said, "I'll buy you," and it had it was all break fix. So it's like I could be $100,000 poorer tomorrow, but it didn't work out that way. So that was hard. And that was my start. I was an engineer first, rather than sales and marketing. So the only way I knew to get customers was I thought if I build it, they'll come. I'll do a great job. It's just such a crock of shit that doesn't work that way. So it was a struggle, convert the customers from break fix, and then over the time, I brought a business in Sydney, sold the business, bought a business in Christchurch, OxygenIT. So I bought that back around 2000 after Christchurch earthquakes, about 2012 or 13. Sold the Australian business, focus on New Zealand, and it's just been that since, and it's a struggle with trying to get past those plateaus as a small business owner.
Sure.
When you only got 1 or 2 staff, you're going, okay, I'm really, really busy. I'm working 60-hour week, 70-hour week. But if I bring somebody on, now I've got that wage. I'm actually not going to take home a pay for the next 3 months while I person on. So that's a hard thing. And my way around that was I just went and brought a couple of businesses, some successful, some not. But I was like, actually, if I acquire the engineers and acquire the income, that could be a bit easier.
Interesting. So I think you had told us in Sydney that you had built your business to about almost 4 million in turnover, but you weren't happy because you weren't profitable at the time. So you talk a little bit about where that business was at that point?
Yeah, so I ended up buying a business a month after I signed the contract a month before we went to lockdown with COVID. And got to delay that for a month. A month after we were in lockdown, I took over a business, and that was a real hard struggle to try and turn that around. I didn't look at the business through the correct lens with the knowledge I have now about recurring revenues and customer makeup and stuff like that. So we struggled for quite a while. And I brought on revenue. For me, it was like revenue, get revenue. And there wasn't the consistency of knowledge around actually not all revenue is good revenue, because some of it comes with noisy customers, poor customers. Some of it diverts you from where you are. It's not focused on exactly what you do. It's just a dollar. As small business owners, we tend to do that. It's a dollar, I'll take it, because that's got to help me. Not reason it costs you $1.20, $1.30, or $1.50 to deliver that dollar. So we got to close to 4 million, and then I was really unhappy. I was losing copious amounts of money, upwards of $90,000 a month, because I had too much staff, hadn't right sized, hadn't consolidated tech stacks, all these things that I now know in hindsight from Gary Pico and Robin Robinson True Methods and Enables courses and all that stuff. Here's what you need to do to be able to get world-class figures. And I was really unhappy. I was sitting in a hotel room in Sydney going, next month, I don't know how I'm going to keep the lights on. I'm losing money. Why the hell am I working 16, 18-hour days to do this? So I looked at the insurance policy and went, well, will that cover all the debts? And as I did that, I just thought, I'm not dumb. I've got a degree in accountancy. I've run a business for 20 years. There's got to be a way to make this work.
Right.
I had a conversation with a friend. He went, it's easy. You work out what you can afford to pay in salaries. You draw yourself a wee lifeboat and put some seats on there and put some people into that lifeboat. Fill it up with the seats. Wow. And if somebody doesn't fit, they don't fit. Because if you try to, I suppose that's kind of my nature, and I'd say a lot of us in IT is we're helpful. We want to help other people. Right. We want to do the right thing. There's very few of us who are completely self-centered. So you're going, well, how do I put one more person in? And he said, my mate's like, if you put one more person in, everybody goes down. Right. And the hard reality was all of the other people would go out and get jobs tomorrow. They're employees. They'll be like, that sucks, but I'm a senior engineer. Where's the next position? As a business owner, it's like a tornado coming through a small town in Iowa. It leaves a lot of damage behind. You don't just hop in your car and drive to the next place.
Yeah. That had to be awful, Tim. I mean, you're obviously, you're thinking to yourself, man, I got into this to be, to do what's right. And help other people out. And to your earlier point, you had brought people on, and their families, their lives depended on what you were delivering, but you couldn't do that. And so you had to make a tough decision. You realized you're overstaffed, and you had to start to lay some people off. And so maybe talk a little bit about what was sort of your process to get out of that hole. What were some of those strategies? Obviously, righting the ship from a technical perspective, getting the right stack in there, and hiring the right people or keeping the right people. But what was that like to try to work yourself out of that hole?
What was the meeting? I mean, like, as much as you say I had to get rid of people, is a few people self-selected. So we had a meeting. I said, here's the situation. I've tried to do this all by myself, and I think too many of us, as owners, we get very fearful of discussing the figures and profitability of the business and the business with our staff, because they're going to see, oh, you make this much money, I want a pay rise. But what that leads to is all these people didn't know the position we're in. Right. Like, all they saw was the consequence. We couldn't pay this bill. This credit card didn't go through. What the hell's going on? Which caused enough nervousness. So I sat down and just went, okay, here's the situation. Here's what we have to do. Some people went, well, you know, there's one person working for us, and they put their hand up and said, I'll go get another job elsewhere. I like you guys. I like the business. I'd love to be here. But if I'm here, the business isn't here, I'll go. You know, and we still keep in contact. So the first thing was, you know, get to zero. My only goal in those first 2 or 3 months was get to zero. If I stop losing money, I then have a runway where I can think, how do I make this better? But if you're in a hole, stop friggin' digging. So we stopped digging. We cut expenses. We went to vendors and said, look, hey, here's the situation. We're screwed. We got a business, you lose as a customer, but can I have 3 or 6 month kind of gratis period, or stop paying, you know, like, I'll turn your service off. You know, it's not critical to the business. I love it, but I don't need it. Some of them went, we'll keep it running because hopefully you're here in 3 or 6 months' time. You used to be a customer. Like, absolutely. So rationalization of services, cutting everything back that wasn't critical, got me to zero. Got to zero, then took the time, and I sat in my garage making gin over a summer. Being a moonshiner, watching that still drip as I watched Gary Pico videos and Robin Robbins videos and all the stuff I could know. Okay, here's what world class looks like. Here's what best in class looks like. Where are we? And then working out the plan. What do we need to get there? Okay, well, we've got 3 different. Stop changing products because you're an IT engineer. Oh, that antivirus looks really good, or that MDR looks really shiny. It's got this new feature. Makes no difference. Pick one, get everybody running it, train your staff, and that's where our operational numbers. You know, we were almost a ticket per endpoint, and well over half an hour per endpoint per month, down to we're 0.3 of a ticket per endpoint, and we're doing about 0.2 of an hour. So those things make a huge difference. At the same time, I kind of looked forward and went, "Where's automation going?" So even though we're not a huge business, I was like, "Let's get everything automated we can." Make my staff happier, less dependent on level 1, level 2 staff coming through. So we put automation in to help drive those numbers down. And I'd also say it's not just one thing. So as much as I'm going on about operational, I'm like, no, to run the business, you can't just do operations. And so I'll get this going really well, and then I'll do marketing and the sales later. And then I'll do sales marketing, and then I'll do my hiring processes after that. So as much as I focus on operational numbers, in hindsight, I realized I was absorbing a lot of marketing and sales information at the same time to start slowly getting that stuff out there. Because I think that getting operationally efficient is fantastic. It will increase us from like minus 20% net profit to plus 20% net profit.
That's amazing.
But 20% net profit of $10 is still only $2. You know, you have to take that $10 and make it $1,000. And that's just, but you don't want to go from minus 20% on $10 to $1,000 to now I'm losing $200. So you want to get operationally efficient as quick as possible,
right?
You know, but you also at the same time have to build up your sales and marketing. And people, I caught in the same track for about a year to 18 months. Where's the easy button? Yeah. I'll use an external lead generation company. Bang, yay, that's going to sort it. I'll do this and I'll send out some marketing. And I didn't get 10 new customers knocking on my door. So I'm like, well, that didn't work. I'll move on to the next thing.
Right.
Marketing is, I'm coming to realize, is a 1 to even 3 or 4 year process. And I'd say don't aim for perfection. You don't want to put out. I watched this video, and this guy said, you need to do I wanted to do a YouTube kind of webinar type thing. He said, your first one's going to suck. So either it can suck in 3 months' time while you try and get it perfect, or it can suck today. If it sucks today, that's one more step towards getting good. So in 3 months' time, you'll have a good one. But rip that band-aid off, and something that's horrible, like our marketing going out initially, absolutely yuck.
Yeah.
We weren't following up correctly, but it was going out.
Good.
And you have to just make a start.
That's good. Yeah, I love that you mentioned operational efficiency is sort of your foundation. You want to get that right first, but you can't stop there. It's because there's no house to live in if you don't figure out go to market and all the rest. So I love that you called that out. One of the other things that you mentioned, Tim, was that when you went through those tough times and you came to your employees and you said, this is the situation that you were in, a lot of them were surprised because you weren't as open with your finances. That's changed, hasn't it? You're quite a bit more open with your team.
Well, it was quite funny. I sit down with one of my guys, and he'll probably watch this, and he's about to move cities. And I'm like, I'll sponsor you to move cities. Do whatever you need to do. Don't want to lose you. He's like, and he can simply sign some new contracts. Like, I want a pay rise. And I was just gobsmacked. I'm like, not saying he didn't deserve it. He's a fantastic person, and I think he deserves the money. But I'm going, in my back of my mind, I'm going, where the hell am I going to get this money from? I'm struggling, just come now profitable. I have creditors, all this other stuff I'm paying off, and I'm trying to get the balance sheet in order, the cash balance, so that the business is healthy. And going, And then I read The Great Game of Business, which is a highly recommended. There's some really good stuff you can pull out of there. So I sat down, I took them onto the pub and said, okay, here's a napkin, write down how much you think out of each dollar I get to keep. And one was 70 cents, and one person was 50 cents, and I went, I wish. And I went, the average MSP, 23% MSPs lose money. Yep, I know, I was one of them. And at some point, the average MSP is between 8 to 10%, depending on who you listen to. And the guy that asked the race said, why would you do it? I said, he said, why would you go through all the effort you're doing if you're only making 8% on those dollars? I said, I just said to him, because we can do better. We can get 20, 25, but we all have to do it together. And afterwards, he said to me, I felt sorry that I asked you for that pay rise. I said, no, you were entitled to ask, and I'm entitled to say no. But I'm entitled to say no by giving you the facts, not just saying no and looking like a douche. It's like, here's why. And now he's got, a decent pay rise kind of a year later. I'm like, it's with the business. The business will do what it can do to support everybody. But the business, first and foremost, you've got to realize, has to look after itself. Yeah. And I see a lot of negative stuff sometimes on YouTube about people saying, businesses will throw you out and they're not in it for you. And there's maybe some businesses, but at the end of it, if you give in to one person, well, you could lose 9 or 10 people because the business goes under. So you don't want that. So now we do, I try to do a quarterly, take them through a P&L, balance sheet, cash flow. I'm trying to work with my accountant to get him to come in to run training courses. So translate that into the P&L is what you earn as an employee, and you pay your taxes. The cash flow is what you have left over at the end of each month. And the balance sheet is what does your mortgage and your assets look like? Let's try and transpose business into personal financial education, which America is the same as New Zealand. It's woeful. You go through high school and they teach you how to count to 10, but they don't teach you about compounded interest and debt on credit cards and high purchase and all the other stuff that derails your life.
Yeah. I love that about you, Tim, is number one, you see something that isn't going so well and you look at it as an opportunity, not as even after everything that's happened, for you to say, we can do better. I love that about your personality. And then the other piece of it, and so many MSPs that have read The Great Game of Business and are clear, or they're open with their books, they are educating their teams just like you are to be better and better understand the inner workings of the business. Because who knows, maybe someday one of them takes over for you, and you're prepping them now with that financial know-how that they might not normally have if they were just an IT tech. So really, really good stuff that you're doing, Tim. Keep up the good work.
Well, the other thing from that was one of the chicks came. He said, we're paying $1,000 a month for this tool. I went, yep. He said, I don't think we get enough benefit from it. We have to sell $8,000 a month to pay for that $1,000.
Wow.
So let's get rid of the tool. Because he said that's 3 new customers we don't need to bring on board this year because we can save that piece of cost because it's not doing the job we need it to do. I'm like, that's empowering.
Yep. Very good. Very good. Yeah, you've done something well there. So part of your course correction was obviously taking a look at parts of the business that, maybe parts of your service offering that didn't fit, and like the overall goals of the business, what you were doing. You were probably doing a little too much of everything. You talk a little bit about some of those conversations and maybe what you decided you were in business for once that you are no longer in business anymore on?
Yeah, so at the same time as we had these financial struggles in the business, I got hacked must be coming up on 4 years ago. I brought a business, gave the previous owner access to systems while doing the transition. He was 62, didn't really care about security. They got in, they hacked us, they encrypted all our backups. I went, yes, so what? Because I always expect that to happen at some point. So I had a second set of completely separate backups, restored it. But it made me realize, like, actually, if I'm hackable and I'm the MSP, what's it like for customers? And that's where we started our security journey. So that's when we got to the point is the two kind of came together. I'm sitting there going, I'm not making enough money. I've got all these wrong customers. I need to do security better. I can focus on that. I'm going to have happier customers, less risk. So we went through and got rid of a lot of customers I think I did the numbers. I can't remember exactly. I had like 160 customers on the book I was invoicing each month for. We are now down to 40 customers, 24 contract customers only. But those customers I got rid of, like the 120 I got rid of, accounted for like 3 to 4% of total revenue.
Wow.
But when I got rid of them, one of the engineers came to me concerned and went, what's going on? The phone's all gone quiet. They were concerned about their jobs because we were down to like 3 or 4 phone calls a day. We do, on average, kind of across 600 endpoints, we're doing like 15 to 20 tickets a day. Obviously, the numbers change.
Right.
Route conditional access and it blows out and comes back down again. But they're like, what do we do? The phones and tickets aren't there. I'm like, well, deliver excellent service. Phone the customers. Spend the time with them. Speak to them. We're still making, they're paying us to do a job. Now we can actually do the job for those who are paying us correctly. So rather than reacting to the person who is break fix ad hoc, is paying you $2,000 for subscriptions, and they pick the phone up and say, this is broken, fix it now. And the answer is, well, why? Well, because I'm paying you an hourly rate, so I expect this done right now. It was moving to customers who are managed contracts. It's like, we will triage your tickets and move you through the system correctly. And when you have a major problem, we will, all hands on deck, and we'll deal with it in a timely manner. And we can, because we have the staff and ability to do that, because that's what you're paying us for. And at the same time, we increased our revenue quite a large amount. I looked at the figures the other day. I think we went up by about 60, 70% on revenue and more on profitability by implementing proper cybersecurity standards. So saying to customers, we have a minimum you need to meet. Yep. And the minimum de-risks both businesses. It de-risks your business because we're doing the bare minimum, and it's a minimum, right? It's the bare minimum to keep you safe. And it de-risks my business because the chance of you being hacked is substantially reduced. So therefore, I'm not going to get a 2 o'clock in the morning phone call saying how to get up and running and impacting the service delivery for all my other customers. So I was laughing. I'm just doing a new website that goes live in about today,
Awesome.
as we have this thing. And one of the things I'm going is for those customers, for being in business and IT, is something I haven't told you, which I'm quite proud of, is for those customers who have adhered to my security advice, I have not had a cyber incident for 10 years.
That's great. Very good. Yep.
I've had a ransomware attack 2 years ago. The customer, I went to them 6 months beforehand. Here's our standard minimum. You need this. No, we don't need it. We're fine. Got hacked. Had another customer who had email being breached 3 times. They're like, you need this. On the third one, we're like, we have to let you go. You're not listening. We just know it. And I think that's the thing is find the right customer who you can service really well. And that's Michael McCallowitz, right? The pumpkin plan, I've read those books and all those sorts of things. Find the right customer. As we now say to the engineers, it's like an email the other day that I haven't seen it in my draft book, but like, who's our top 3 customers by revenue? Let the engineers understand when that phone call comes in from those top customers, they treat our top customer. And then who's the top 3 customers by engagement, not by revenue. who's the top three who we love hearing from? We hear them, we want to help them. How long can we spend on the phone with them and sort their problems? Who's the bottom three? And so driving the business, it's like, okay, well, these are the bottom three. Why? Oh, well, they've been having a bad month. No, they're just not a right fit. Okay, so when we get more money, we move them on because we want. I want easiest come to. We can't find 3 disengaged customers.
Right. Yeah,
that's makes my job easy. Makes their job easy.
Yeah. That's really good, Tim. And that is one of those steps of maturity. Obviously, you had hit rock bottom from a profitability perspective years before this, but when you can get to a spot where you say, hey, these customers are actually costing us money, but both time and money. And so we need to find them another home, right? We need to fire them, find them another home. And oh, by the way, it's freed up time for our techs to be more proactive. You're truly a managed service provider now, Tim, and you're doing stuff that most customers don't expect from their IT company, right? To be able to proactively keep them up and running. And so really, really powerful. The other thing that I heard you mention earlier was this mind shift that you had to make, that revenue wasn't the most important thing. It's important, but profitability is the most important thing, right? Like you had to make sure, again, back to the efficiency piece, but can you talk about how difficult that was? I mean, obviously you had gotten to a spot where you thought you were doing really well with 4 million in turnover, but you're underwater from a profitability perspective. But how was it an overnight thing, or was that still, did you have to convince yourself on a weekly basis that make sure we're going after the right customers, the right deals, and the revenue will come?
For me, it was an instant thing. I was sitting in that hotel room. I went into Xero. I generated numbers. I sorted them. And we, okay, if it's just me looking after the business, who can I service? Great. Okay. Now, as I fill that lifeboat up, okay, I'll bring an engineer on to help me. Okay, I can look after these customers. Okay, I need somebody to do the billing, so I want to do some sales. Okay, that didn't give me any more customers, but filled another seat. And I just went through and went, that's what I have to do, because I was in such a bad position. I didn't have the luxury of, in the next 6 months, maybe I'll sign a contract and get out of this. I'm like, if I don't sort this tonight, I can't go home back to Christchurch, and then we put $250,000 back on the house and finance the business to get through it.
Yeah,
that was a few tears in the family. I'd suggest you don't get to that position first.
Yeah.
So I'm working with another MSP. I'm working with, so one of my goals is to work with MSPs, right? So I've got 2 MSPs I'm working with since we met. I'm working with 2 MSPs. I'm working with one guy in Australia, and we're going, okay, let's right-size your customer base. What's the revenue? What's the profitability of them? Okay, what are you doing for these ones? And he's gone through and gone, okay, I can get rid of these 5 customers, and it's actually not going to impact me at all. I'm actually going to be better off. Yep. And it's just, you don't have to do it in one go. Like if you are at 3% profitability, you have the luxury of time. You can sit down and make a plan and discuss it with, I'd say find somebody you can discuss it with. So I discuss my business in too much detail, as you well know, with too many other MSPs. Because I'm like, I don't compete against them. Even in my local town, I was at Kaseya conference, met a Christchurch MSP. Like, I don't think we've lost business to each other in 10 years. So why would I be concerned about telling you what and how I'm doing?
Yeah.
But work out your plan on a methodology. Now, I have a methodology. Yep. And I'm a really, people go, oh, you're so innovative. No, I don't have an innovative bone in my body. I'm an imitator. Yeah. But imitate the best and then tweak it for how it works for you. And so I did that. I got a methodology, went through with this other MSP, said, okay, here's how you calculate all the figures. Here's how you calculate it on a methodological basis, on a methodology. It gives you a ranking. How do you feel about that? And there might be somebody who's an F customer who you think, I just can't fire them at the moment. Well, you're going, okay, great. But that's a decision you've made. You haven't let it happen to you. You haven't let it get worse, And it might be, look, I'm not charging enough, but they've given me $50,000 worth of contract revenue over the last 3 years as referrals. So they're not paying for the service, but there was something. If there's no redeeming features, then find somebody. So we have 2 business partners. I have 2 other IT companies. I go, this customer doesn't fit for me now. I'd like to hand them over to you. They're like, what do you want for it? I said, I don't want anything. I just want you to look after them.
Right.
Yeah. Because if you don't hand them off, it will come through in your tone, in your service desk manner. As a leader, you will say to your staff, oh, why have we got so many tickets for that customer? And the engineers will say, well, maybe we shouldn't be dealing with that customer in this manner. That customer, after 6 months, will say your service has dropped and they will leave you anyway.
Right. That's good.
You can, it's not a case of faking it. You can't fake it till you make it in that. When you've got a customer who is truly not the right fit for you, it's the reverse. You need to get rid of it. Don't try and fake it. Have a conversation with them. Explain how you've moved on. Explain how their business is slightly different. And by the way, I found somebody who I think could be good for you.
That's great. Tim, you've left me with a bunch of nuggets over the last couple of months. I call them Timisms, if you will. One of my favorite ones I want to share with everybody. It's sales is not a dirty word. I think you shared that with us at our event in the Blue Mountains, because we were talking about, and thanks for the reference to an American movie, Field of Dreams. MSP is not a field of dreams, right? You can't just go out there and say, here it is, people will come. You got to get your butt out there and you got to start knocking on doors and talking to people. So talk a little bit about your mindset around sales.
So I was an engineer and I thought, and there's always a conflict. So it's quite funny because I've got a salesperson and he says, this is one of the few MSPs I've worked at where there's no conflict between engineering and sales. Engineers don't go, why the hell have they sold it? Sales don't sell shit. And that comes from, I was watching to get myself into a sales mindset. I like, sales is just a skill. So therefore you can learn it. Therefore it's 4 hours a day of videos. Here's subscribing to Robin, Gary Pico, Galactic Advisor, all these different services. They'll get sales training. It's like, I would just put a video on when I walk to work in the morning at double speed. So I'd listen to an hour's video on the way to work, an hour's video on the way home, an hour's video while I walk the dogs. I'd go for a walk around the park for an hour and there's 2 hours worth of videos. It's like 4 hours of videos a day going into the brain. It's just repetition. And what that taught me was like, sales is only a dirty word if you're trying to sell the wrong thing to the wrong person. Sales isn't about selling. It's about education and finding the person who wants what you have to deliver. And if you can find that, isn't it? I mean, look, we've lost some sales recently. People go, your price is too expensive. I go, well, that's the price I've priced myself at to run a profitable business, to stay in business and deliver the service that I believe you need. Now, if that's not the service you need, then there's other people out there who will deliver the service you need. And I have no problem with that. I don't get upset by it. I don't get angry. I go, well, we'll see where they are in 3 years. I know who they've gone to. Then we'll put them on the list. We'll carry on marketing to them. We'll follow up with them. And if they've got what they want and they're paying for what they need, which is less than what they want from me, fantastic. By all good graces, go forward and run a happy, I want them to run a happy business. But if you try to sell the wrong things to the wrong customer, now that is sales. And that's where it leaves a dirty, dirty word. I mean, we had one customer, one prospect who wanted to sign up with us. I just said to the salesperson, no, we're not signing them. It's like, but it's $5,000 a month. I'm like, no, they're not the right cultural fit for our business. They're going to cause problems. So for me, it was training. The advantage that's given me is my sales guy loves taking me on sales calls now, even though I've been an engineer for coming up on 30 years.
Wow.
He said, you don't revert to engineering. You don't risk feeds and feeds and solutioning. You're like, I can look at what the customer's talking about. I know how to solve it. And my engineer goes, I've solved that. Cool. Move on. How do I turn that into something I can explain to this business owner or C-suite person that we give them an outcome? So it's not about breaks. It's not about managing the technology. It's about delivering an outcome to them that they can quantify so they can then say, yes, we'll pay the premium you want to charge because we understand how you're different. And that, I give the sales training right through the whole business. People may choose not to do it. Engineers, they really don't want to do the sales training.
Yep.
But there's a framework course we do that explains why we're different and how we do what we do, so that if they can sit in front of the customer and understand, if the customer's, our bill's too much. It's like, well, it's too much because here's what we're doing for you. We have all these different departments who do different things. If you go to a one-man band, and there's nothing against one-man bands, I was there, and we have a need for them, and I've seen some negative things in the past. They service a great job for the right customer. but our price goes up as we deliver more departments.
Awesome. So Tim, you mentioned you have a 30-year short IT career, 30-year IT career, and you have experienced some things that I think a lot of folks would have never experienced. But what would you tell young Tim when he was just about ready to start his IT career that you know now that maybe you didn't know then?
So I went through school and tried to get expelled. They tried to expel me from school because I just didn't really enjoy it. I was like, I'd turn up and go, what are we taught? The textbook, at the end of the year, I'm out of here. And so I lacked self-belief. I failed English. I couldn't write really well. That had a massive impact on my ability to do sales. So I didn't go down the sales route because I couldn't write proposals. I'm like, I'll be an engineer because if I pull this widget or this lever, something happens. It's easy. It's mathematical and it's logical. So if I'd gone back, I'd be going like, sales is, even if you're an engineer, sales is really important. How do you get your next job? You have to sell somebody that you can do a good job. Not just I got 99% on the Cisco exam. So if I had my way again, when I first started the business, I would be back there going, I'll go and employ an engineer and I will do sales.
Awesome.
And then marketing. So understand, I think the really big thing is I've got sales is understanding marketing. We as a business and industry waste so much money on marketing.
Yep.
Because we don't understand it. We want somebody else to do it for us and we abdicate it. No, I didn't say delegate, we abdicate. I've paid you $4,000 a month. I want some results. 6 months later, why haven't I got the results? I'm going to move to a different agency or try something different, or marketing doesn't work.
Yeah.
And marketing's a lot harder than sales because sales is tangible. I can go and knock on the door and speak to Chris and say, I won the deal, didn't win the deal. He liked me, didn't like me. My price is too high, it wasn't too high. It's instant feedback, and you can put a really good process in for it that's quantifiable. I phoned 100 people. One person gave me an appointment. Out of 10 appointments, I got 4 proposals. Out of 4 proposals, I won one of them. I have numbers. If I want to scale my business, just do more of that. Marketing is a field of dreams.
It is.
You build it and you're hoping they're going to turn up at some point because it's really quantifiable. There are some parts like Google AdWords, you can get metrics.
Yep.
But it's hit and miss. Like you might put a bad ad out there, and you might spend $15,000 and get 1 lead. You change your ad slightly, all of a sudden you've got 100 leads. It's so marketing, I think, is something that as MSPs we need to not stop abdicating. We need to start actually getting involved in it, and you can delegate it. If you're really busy, you can delegate it. Find a smart personal agency to delegate who's going to teach you and walk you through it. So as the business owner, you can make the decision. You don't actually have to do all the work like print the flyers and the newsletters and post the ads. I'm not saying you have to do that, but you have to have metrics and be responsible for it yourself. You can't just go, I've paying this company $2,500 a month, I'm all good. So like SEO, like I write all my own blogs for the SEO. Until today, I post all the social media posts. I review them all and know them all because it doesn't take too long to do. But I get all that content delivered to me, like the social media posts are formatted by somebody else. But I know what's going out in the business.
Very good. All right, so I think I told you I was going to ask this question. The name of the podcast is the Now That's It podcast, Tim. And so I'd love to ask you, when did you know now that's it?
And what sort of, that I wanted to carry on doing IT or?
You were, Yep.
I think the funniest thing is I sat in my garage, and I told you, I sat in my garage around just before Christmas. We've now got to profitability. We're now growing above the industry average of 10%. We did 50% last year of MRR increase. I use that to get rid of customers. We're on target to do the same again this year. Okay, well, now that's it. What next? And I went, actually, what I want to do is help other MSPs. Like, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying I've got all the answers. Hell no. I'm so far from that. But what I am doing is going to, I'm in 3 peer groups, Enable, True Method, Rob and Rom. So I'm trying to gain all this knowledge and tidbits. I'm like, well, how can I help other MSPs? You know, how can I have conversations? I mean, I'm helping two at the moment, but I'm also had conversations with like 3 or 4 more. It's like, let's have a look at your books. Let's have a, you know, how much help do you need? Do you want a little bit of help? Do you want somebody to say, hey, attaboy, you're on the right track? Or do you want somebody to say, no, you really need to change this? But it also comes down to what they want to do. You know, what's the end goal? But for me, you know, I mean, after 30 years, it's like, what now? What now is, how can I help other people?
I was hoping you'd say that, because that's something you shared with us, I think the first time we ever met. And it's something that I love MSPs that have gotten to that point in their maturity level where they've said, look, I've made some mistakes. I've done some good things. If my stories can help somebody else, I want to share it, because this idea of MSPs helping MSPs is really, really powerful. And that's what's unique about our channel is that, yeah, I mean, we could technically say we're competitors with everybody, but we're not. I mean, you've got folks in your own community there that you look at and say, look, I'll send you deals that aren't good fits for me. If they help you, great. Like, that's really, really powerful, Tim. Tim, I really want to thank you so much for joining the pod this week. You're an amazing individual. I'm glad I got to know you. I can't wait to see how OxygenIT continues to be profitable and grows over the coming years. I wish you and the OxygenIT team the absolute best of luck in the future. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me along, and hopefully, as I said, hopefully this conversation can help another MSP realize it's not all shit. And in closing, you know, you said about helping the community. You know, we do help. Like, we are very helpful. You just find the right people. And I put, and rather trying to close one new customer against a competitor in my local market, I'd far rather go for a beer with them. You know,
great.
Having a beer with somebody who understands the struggles we go through, because you can't take it home to your family. You can't take it home to your business partner. You need somebody independent who you can go have a beer with and go, I've had a really shit week. And they go, yeah, so do I. Let's have a chat about the shitty customers. So, hey, look, thanks for having me on board, and hopefully this helps another MSP up there.
Thanks so much, Tim.